welcome to the air, without further ado, former WWE Developmental superstar Dean Visk. How are you doing tonight, man?
I'm fantastic, guys. Thanks for having me tonight.
It's an honor to have you on the show. Now, we've got a lot of good questions lined up. We got some fans in the chat room. So
cool.
I want to say that we're going to open up the phone lines tonight. If anybody wants to call in and ask a question, they can. 718-664-9835. But without further ado, let's start with the interview.
Awesome. Lay it on me.
Now, my first question for you is, growing up, were you a professional wrestling fan? If so, who were some of your favorites?
Wow, you know what, I was. I came from a family that, Saturday nights, it was TBS night, brother, and we watched mainly NWA, and we watched the WWE, and, one of my favorites, always was, always is, and always will be is the Ultimate Warrior, man. Huge Ultimate Warrior fan, and I also loved the Von Erich brothers growing up.
Nice. Now, what was your favorite NWA moment watching as a kid?
Wow. NWA, watching Rock and Roll Express, Midnight Express feud, Rock and Roll Express versus Rick Rude, Manny Fernandez. There was an event that I remember growing up as a kid. My father took me to see Dusty Rhodes win the bunkhouse boot in a cage against Big Bubba at the Pittsburgh Civic Arena, which is my hometown, and that was pretty special for me back then.
Nice. Now, was wrestling your first career choice? If not, what was?
Professional wrestling sort of came and went in my life. When I was growing up, it was something that my father and I did, my brother and I did. We enjoyed going to the matches. We enjoyed watching the matches on Saturday night. And then pro wrestling sort of took a back burner to bodybuilding. And how pro wrestling sort of fell in my lap was through bodybuilding. I was working at a gym at the time when I was in college, studying to be a nurse, and there were several professional wrestlers at the gym that I was training at. It was King's Gym in Pittsburgh, and at that time in Pittsburgh, Luscious Johnny Valiant was running a school, and I would, go out to eat with these wrestlers and these different bodybuilders, and would go to this school and kind of watch them train, and I thought, it might be something I might be interested in. And trained with Johnny Valiant a few times and thought, this might be something I might want to do. And after I graduated from college in 2000, I got an opportunity to come to Cincinnati and train with, the legendary Heartland Wrestling Pro Wrestling Academy with Les Thatcher. And the rest was history. I came here late 2000, early 2001, and I started training with Les and learning what I needed to learn in order to eventually move on and get a deal with WWE and be where I'm at today as far as my wrestling skills.
Now, being that you got trained by such, a legendary star like Les Thatcher, what would you say to a kid who wanted to get into the business that just didn't know who to go to get properly trained? I mean, there's 10,000 schools out there, but very few that are legit. What would you tell someone that wanted to get into
the business? Well, what I would really tell them is to be really careful, sort of buyer beware. No different than if you go to a personal trainer at a gym, you're not going to want to get personal trained by some big fat slob that looks like crap. So you're going to want to get trained by somebody who's actually done something in the business, who actually is putting good professional wrestlers out there. We have a guy here, Cody Hawk, who runs a legitimate wrestling school who's going to train you right. This guy is trained with all the top guys, and he's going to train you right. Probably would recommend OVW still with the guys down there that are doing the training. Are two of the most, legit schools. I mean, obviously, if you can't get a developmental deal and go down to Florida and get paid to train, then, you still have some good quality schools, but you also have some real idiots out there that have maybe had, have been in the business for over 20 years, but yet they've only had 20 matches, that are running wrestling schools. It's really a sad shame.
I would agree with you completely. Now, every wrestler has their first match story. Can you tell us any memories of your first match?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you about kind of my first two matches. They were very, very memorable. The first one was against an excellent professional wrestler, the Ice Cream Man, Tony B. At that time, Shark Boy was doing some training at the Heartland Wrestling Camp, and he was doing some booking and took me and the Ice Cream Man Tony B down to, I believe it was Peoria, Illinois, was where the show was at. And I just remember just going at it with Tony B. And, we were just so excited to have our first match. We were both blown up, but we just kept going and just making every spot bigger and bigger and giving each other backdrops all over the place. And it was a really good time. And then my second match, I guess would be my official match with the Heartland Wrestling Association, was in a battle royal. And I got so carried away with my character that I wound up spitting on some of the people in the crowd and taking the mic, taking it upon myself to take the mic. And I just remember being in the back and Shark Boy telling me, hey, great job tonight, but two things. One, don't take the mic unless you're told. And two, please don't spit on the fans. So that was my first two matches.
Now, what are your feelings on Les Thatcher?
You know what? I love Les, man. Les, he taught me how to respect the business and how to survive in this business. Everything that, Les would drill into us that we would think, this is bull, what's the old man talking about? He's nuts. Came to fruition when I went to WWE. I do feel, though, that he could have put Jet Jablonski and Dean the Dream Jablonski up to WWE a lot sooner. I think that, we should have had a developmental deal back when the Heartland Wrestling Association had a developmental deal. There was a lot of guys that should have had developmental deals back then. We were wrestling night after night after night, doing the same things. We were, dare I say, more over than a lot of the guys at that time that had developmental deals, and we ourselves didn't have them. So I think the guys like, me and Chad, Pepper Parks, Cody Hawk, Nigel McGuinness, who's now doing his thing in TNA, we all should have had deals way back then, way back in early 2000.
Now, can you talk about your time with UPW? I know you said you made a run out there for a show.
Yeah, it was a one-time deal. I had contacted Rick Bassman via email and sent him some photos and a tape, and he said I was welcome to come out there. And I went out there mainly because I knew that was the breeding ground for guys that were big and muscular back then. At that time, I was about 285. And I thought that, that would be a place for maybe me to go, maybe even potentially move there and train there eventually. And had a match there and got treated excellent. It was a good time. Got to lay on the beach a little bit, and it was just a one-time deal, and it was a really good time. I have nothing but good things to say about UPW and Rick Bassman and the guys who were training out there at the time.
Now, when you were out there, who was out there that is currently in the company in the big times?
I believe Heidenreich was just getting ready to be sent to OVW. At that time, he was out there. I don't remember. It was way before. It was around the time that I sort of broke away from the HWA and decided, now's my time to sort of, find my own way in this business. And if the HWA at that time isn't going to bring me up to the wrestling gods in Stamford, Connecticut and get me a deal, then you know what, I'm going to do it on my own. And where do I need to go to train in order to do it? And that's basically, was around that time. So I was kind of, not really familiar with, who's who, and, I just kind of went out there and did my thing, and it was a one-time deal, and I didn't have to go back. I wound up about 2 years later getting signed with WWE.
Now, Dean, a couple moments ago you mentioned a lot of the names you worked with in Heartland, specifically Nigel McGuinness. What are some of your memories of working with Nigel?
Nigel, you know what? Nigel is probably one of the best workers out there right now. Probably one of the most underrated workers. I'm really happy that he's, getting his time to shine with, the Desmond Wolfe gimmick. But Nigel was great, man. He was hilarious inside the ring and hilarious outside the ring. I've had, great opportunity to travel with the guy, and, he'll have you laughing. If you're on the road with him, driving in a car for 10 hours, he'll have you laughing the whole time. Nigel's a great guy.
He's had some great matches with someone we'll talk about a little bit later, Kurt Angle. Now, during the time that you were in OVW, this is really a big time for them because there's a lot of names that have gone on, or they came up to some some notoriety. Guys like Ken Anderson, Bobby Lashley, Ken Doane.
Yeah.
Just to name a few. What are some of your fondest memories of that time?
Oh man, you know something, and I've described it as this before. When I was in OVW with those guys, Paul Burchill, Ken Doane, Anderson, Rob Conway was there for a little while, Sylvain Grenier. I mean, the list just goes on and on. Bobby Lashley, it was a magic time. Idol Stevens, it was unbelievable. It was a magical time there. Every person in that locker room got along. Mickey James, Molina, Morrison. I mean, they were all there, man. I mean, it was just. I mean, I watched WWE, The Miz. All those names were there when I was there, and we were all like a family. We all got along. There was no locker room politics. We trained together at the same gym. We, wrestled, we partied, we did everything together, and it was like a big family. The Highlanders, you name it, they were there during that time, and, it was a really, really special time, I think. And from what I understand from talking to some of the guys that are in developmental right now, it's not like that anymore. You don't have that family type of environment. Al Snow was doing the training. There was it was Lance Storm and Al Snow, and then Al Snow took over the training, and it was just, I can't say enough about that group of guys. We did our share of ribbing, and I got my share of ribs from Ken Doane and some of the other guys. But man, it was a great time. Good group of guys.
Yeah, Ken Doane actually used to teach at a school about a mile from my house. That school's since shut down. You mentioned a lot of those other names there, and, I don't want to hit on everyone because that could be a whole show unto itself. But you mentioned The Miz, and I wanted to get your thoughts on The Miz's, he just won the WWE title, and I want to get your thoughts on his recent success.
Well, you know what, I'm really happy for The Miz because, The Miz showed me nothing but respect when, we were down there in OVW. But, and I'll tell it to The Miz's face, and I'll tell it to John Laurinaitis' face. I'll tell it to Vince's face. Wrestling just isn't what it used to be, man. I mean, you don't have these larger-than-life characters. Nothing against The Miz. I mean, I think he's a good guy, and I'm very happy for his success. But you put The Miz in a long-sleeve shirt, and you walk him down the street, nobody's going to know who he is. Nobody's going to know he's a wrestler. Nobody's going to know he's a fighter. They're going to say, hey, that's a pretty good-looking guy there. It's not like it was. Back when I was growing up, you had guys like the Ultimate Warrior, Sid Vicious, Hulk Hogan. These guys jumped off the pages like superheroes. Now, you don't know if you're, sitting next to, a WWE superstar, at Chipotle when you're having your burrito. You can't tell the difference because, they're not larger-than-life characters anymore, man. They're normal-looking dudes. If I look at a WWE champion, the World Wrestling Entertainment heavyweight champion, I want to say, holy crap, that guy can kick my butt anytime, any day. This guy's larger than life. I don't even want to try it. The Miz walks into the bar, brother. I've had one too many Four Locos. I might kick his ass. And then there's your WWE champion, So it's, like I said, it's nothing against The Miz. He's doing his job. He's doing a great job. Great wrestler. It's the business in general, man. I mean, how do you make somebody who's not larger-than-life heavyweight champion?
Now, do you think that's primarily because of the decline of the wrestling business, or like with the guys with Hulk Hogan and Ultimate Warrior? They were obviously on certain like steroids, things like that. Do you think that's part of that is the fact that we all kind of know what that does these days?
You know what though, bro? I'm here to say on record. I said it when WWE, initiated their wellness policy. You can take a hair that's been growing on my ass since I was 2 and test it for any kind of steroid. I've never taken a steroid in my life. I was jacked back then. I'm jacked now. I'll always be jacked. Never ever took a steroid in my life. You don't have to take steroids to be jacked. Back in that era, that's what those guys did. That's what they knew. I don't know if the research back in the 80s, early 90s was really there that, said, how bad they are for you. So, that's, what people did. There's always going to be cheaters out there. There's always going to be people that are going to do that. But, you still have to you don't have to be a muscle man. And I think that's one of the major problems with the business, guys. I turn on TNA, everybody's got the same physique. I turn on WWE, everybody's got the same physique. Everybody looks the same. Muscle men, back when wrestling was at its peak in the 80s, early 90s, that was something special. That was something that, to be odd. You still had guys like One Man Gang, Bam Bam Bigelow. You still had, Bam Bam Terry Gordy. You still had the guys that, weren't muscle guys, that had their own gimmick, that had their own personality. Now everybody looks the same. Everybody's running the same frickin' spots. It's not the same. If I want to see two guys really beat the hell out of each other, I'm not going to buy WrestleMania. I'm going to, tune into the UFC product. If I want to see superheroes doing superhuman things, I'm going to want to watch professional wrestling. So I think what's happening with the business right now is it's trying to be something that it's not. The cat's been out of the bag for 10 frickin' years that it's a work. Everybody knows it's a work. If you don't know that it's a work, then you probably still believe in Santa Claus. So why would you try and make something that is a work, not take it to the next level? Why do you want it to be something that you've already got out there? And we've got UFC now. We've got, Brock Lesnar. We've got these guys that are going to, for real, beat people up. So now what we need to do with professional wrestling is we need to bring back the characters. We need to bring back, the Akeems. We need to bring back the Slicks. We need to bring back the managers. We need to bring back the theatrics of professional wrestling, because that's what made professional wrestling great. That's why I watched it when I was a kid. I didn't watch professional wrestling because I wanted to see the fights. I watched professional wrestling because I wanted to see Roddy Piper hit Jimmy Snuka over the head with a coconut. So.
Yeah, definitely.
That's my thoughts on pro wrestling, right now.
That's one of the more eloquent descriptions that I've heard. Now, early on we were talking about Kurt Angle a little bit. We were talking about some of the matches that Nigel McGuinness had with him, and you mentioned you're from Pittsburgh, just like Kurt Angle. You made an appearance on TV as part of the Kurt Angle Invitational while you were working with Developmental.
Yeah.
And what are your some of your memories of being in the ring with Kurt, especially being with someone who's kind of like a local hero to a lot of the wrestlers from Pittsburgh?
Man, Kurt's a great guy. I mean, I actually learned bodybuilding from Kurt's brothers, Johnny Angle and Eric Angle. I think Eric had a brief stint in wrestling for a little while. Went on to, become an amazing bodybuilder. And his brother, Johnny, taught me everything I know about nutrition. I mean, he was, an amazing guy with nutrition. And so I knew Kurt from the gym I worked out at King's Gym, and hadn't seen Kurt in many, many years. I don't even know if Kurt even knew that I was pursuing professional wrestling. And when I saw him in the locker room, and I knew that that night him and I were going to do the Kurt Angle Invitational deal, he remembered me right away, and we started talking about his brothers, and he was easy to work with. I mean, one of the easiest guys I've ever worked with. Surf legend Cody Hawk and Kurt Angle, man. I mean, it was just, I told him, brother, I'm all ears, and we just did it, and it went really, really well, and I wound up getting signed with WWE very shortly after that deal on TV.
Now, also in developmental, one of the guys who was around was Paul Heyman. What are some of your memories and feelings of Paul Heyman?
Paul and I got along great. I mean, he was the guy that helped develop the Dean the Cooler Visk character. Paul, is a genius. I mean, he literally is. You probably don't recognize him without his sandals on, but he is a professional wrestling god. He can write storylines and suck people in, put people in the seats, and make money. And ultimately, I know, I was a professional wrestling fan. I love the business, blah, blah, blah. But ultimately, we all get in the business to make money at it. We don't break our bodies down and, potentially be in a wheelchair before we're, 40 years old to not make money in the business. And Paul Heyman has that genius mastermind to bring people in and make money and make professional wrestling entertaining and make professional wrestling what it is. It's a show. It's theatrics. It's larger-than-life theatrics. We want to see magic. You want to see magic when you watch professional wrestling. And that's what he brought. That's what he brought to the table. Some of my fondest memories was working with Paul and developing the Dean the Cooler Visk character. Absolutely.
Is there any truth to the rumor that they were going to bring the Warlord in to team up with you?
That is absolutely true. Before the deal with Ted DiBiase Sr., what the deal was they were going to bring back the Warlord, from what I understand, and the Warlord and I were going to tag. They were going to bring us up to do the deal with the Legion of Doom, the Road Warriors, Animal, and Heidenreich. And around that time, Heidenreich had some inner ear problems and wound up asking for his release, which kind of kiboshed that. And I don't know how on board the Warlord was at the time. I think he was over 40 and still active in the business, but I don't know if he was ready for the schedule that the WWE would have had us do. But yeah, that was definitely in the works. That was what was going to happen. That was the plan.
That just doesn't sound right to me, the Road Warriors, Animal, and Heidenreich. But
yeah. Yeah, man.
Another one of the guys who was around in Ohio Valley in developmental, he was Lance Storm. What's some memories of working with Lance?
Lance was cool. Lance was very. I kind of equate Lance very much like Les. Lance was a very technical guy. He was very good at teaching technical wrestling skills. I'll be the first one to say it. I'm not a technical wrestler. I am more into the theatrics. I'm more into cutting the promos. So I learned a lot more from Al Snow. I learned a lot more about working smart, working so that I can still be working when I'm 40, 45, and not be in a wheelchair. I learned, so much more from Al Snow. I think Lance Storm was really good for, the smaller guys that were technical guys that, were there to display their professional wrestling skills, that were great professional wrestlers. I, was more of an entertainer.
Now, how did you feel teaming with Chet Jablonski?
Say that again?
I said, how did you feel when you were teaming with Chet Jablonski?
Oh, I loved it, man. Chet the Jet Jablonski, and he's my brother. My brother from a different mother. Chet the Jet Jablonski. I mean, we broke into the business together. We both came, he came from Buffalo, New York. I came from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We both came to less stature to learn our skills, to become professional wrestlers. And, geez, I would say we practically grew up together in, the business. And, when I went to when I got signed and I found out that Chet got signed, we were ecstatic. And we thought that we were signed to go and tag together in OVW and WWE, and that really wasn't the case. Though they did have us do some tag matches, they really weren't into it because we weren't Shoot Brothers, and they didn't like the name Jablonski. I remember we got pulled into the office, and it was Lance Storm. I think it was Lance Storm, Tommy Dreamer, a couple other office guys from WWE. I can't remember exactly who, but they just pulled us in the office and said, "Hey, Jablonski, it's way too hard to say and it's way too hard to spell." And I had already done the Angle Challenge on TV, so they just left me with Dean Visk, and they left Chet with Chet the Jet. And before he got released, I believe they were working on a Polish gimmick with him because we were both of Polish descent. And I think they changed his name to Putius Jablonski or something like that. But he really couldn't speak Polish fluently. And I think very shortly after that he got released, from what I understand, unfortunately, because he's another guy, man. He's another guy that could go in the ring. And he had the look. He looked great. He went to the gym every day. He ate his chicken and broccoli and did what he had to do at the table to look excellent, and didn't need any nonsense steroids or anything like that.
Now, who are some of your favorite people to work with in the ring?
Oh wow, Cody Hawk. He's a guy that I'm still working with to this day. It's like a night off. Working with that guy, you just kind of on cruise control, and we've worked each other so many times. Some of the funnest matches I had under contract, I would say, would be with Aaron the Idol Stevens. Had a great time with. Had great times with Bobby Lashley. Had some great times tagging with Ken Doane. And some of my most memorable matches, I would say, had some great times with Elijah Burke, who's now the Pope, who I think is one of the most entertaining guys out there right now. I had a great time with a lot of those guys.
Now, who are some of your least favorite to work with? Like, who were the hardest for you to work with in the ring?
Believe it or not, they put me with CM Punk a few times, and I love CM Punk, man. Huge CM Punk fan. I think CM Punk is an awesome dude, but we just had no chemistry in the ring. It just didn't work, man. But yeah, I just remember in practice a few times they would throw CM Punk and I in there, and I just no chemistry with CM Punk for some reason. I did.
Now, do you have a rib or a road story you can share with our listeners?
Say that again. Do I ever rib the listeners?
A rib or a road story that you can share with our listeners?
Oh, wow. Yeah, geez. I'll tell you a couple. I'll tell you the first time I ever met Roy McAllister, I was on the road. I think we were in Michigan. And, back then I used to, I know it's a terrible habit and I would never go back to it, but I used to chew snuff. School meant long cut. A lot of guys did because, you'd go to a show, you'd arrive at the show at 1, you didn't wrestle until 10. What do you do, in the locker room for, 9 hours? So we would, chew that snuff, and it also kept us awake at night when we were, driving from town to town. And I just remember I had this full bottle of chew spit, School Mint Long Cut, and we were in this really crowded locker room, and you kind of had to jockey for position and jockey for a seat, and I remember sitting down and somebody's stuff was kind of at my feet, and I just remember accidentally spilling that whole bottle of chew spit on somebody's gear, and I was like, oh shit. And Roy McAllister came back into the locker room. He was out wrestling a match, and he came to get his gear, and all his gear was just covered with chew spit. And all I could say was, "Sorry, brother." And I didn't know, but he had like another 2-week stretch on the road, and that was all his luggage, all his gear covered in chew spit.
Damn.
So I guess he smelled like school. I mean, we're still really, really great friends to this day, and he still tells a story about how he smelled like School's Ned Long Cut for the next 2 weeks on the road because I had dumped my spitter on all of it, and yeah, but we're still great friends, and that was the first time him and I met. And we've been friends ever since.
Nice.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and then just ribs from Ken Doan. You know, I carry a cooler, and that's really how the name Dean the Cooler Visk came about. Was I would carry a cooler everywhere I went with my food. I would eat every 2 hours. You know, I was really a stickler on nutrition, and that was part of the reason why I got hired was for my look. And I would carry a cooler everywhere I went, but I really had to be careful that where I left it, because a couple times my cooler, luckily it wasn't filled with anything, you know, too disgusting, but I had, you know, my Tupperware of chicken up on the rafters in buildings. I've had my protein shakes, you know, flushed down the toilet and go to my cooler to eat my chicken and broccoli, and it's filled with candy. You know, just you know, fun stuff, man. We had a good time. You know, OVW was a really special place back then. It really was.
Now, how can a promoter get in touch with you?
You can Facebook me. You know, that's probably the easiest way these days. I mean, with Facebook, you know, they can you know, get in touch with me. They can email me at dcoolervisk@yahoo.com. You know, and yeah. But, yeah, Facebook's probably the easiest way.
Now, what does the next 5 years hold for Dean Visk?
I don't know, brother. You know, I'm still out there. I'm still, you know, doing my thing wrestling. You know, I still think I have some good years left in me. And, you know, there are times when I think, you know, maybe one more run, you know. But right now I'm just having fun with it. I'm really enjoying being back on the indie circuit. I have some really good friends out there that are wrestling on the indie circuit that are really good crew of guys, and just having a good time doing it. Just glad to still be in it, glad to still be able to do my thing, you know, happy to be in the gym every single day and, you know, have the ability to, you know, eat right and do my thing. So it's hard to say. You know, you never know what might happen. You know, just like the Macho Man said, you know, never say never.
Do you have any final words for your fans before we wrap this interview up?
Just, you know, happy that, you know, I could still, you know, walk into a building and people still recognize me. You know, they still remember Dean the Dream Jablonski. They still remember Dean the Cooler Visk. They still remember, you know, what Chet and I did back, you know, in HWA and, you know, what we did in OVW. And just really thankful that the fans are still, you know, supportive and that they don't forget, man. It's amazing. True professional wrestling fans, they never forget, brother. Never forget.
Very true. I want to thank you for coming on tonight and joining us.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, man.